On the surface, they appeared to be a happy couple. They had been married for more than a dozen years. He wore a ring on his finger with their names on it. But now we're learning behind the smile, there are allegations that this woman and the victim's half-brother are capable of something that no one saw coming. New court documents detail an alleged gruesome homicide and a meticulously awful attempt to allegedly cover it up. And a wife and brother now accused of cutting up the body of someone who people thought they cared about and hiding body parts in a freezer, even allegedly leaving an arm and other body parts in a lake. And then we have the alleged internet search history that we just learned about, and we could not believe it. What this man's wife allegedly put into a search engine in hopes that her husband's homicide could stay a secret forever. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Stewart. In some ways, this is a story about a couple that appeared to really love each other, and a story about brothers who appeared to really be proud of each other, at least at one point in time. They were family members who spent years by each other's side. But above all, at this point, it really appears that this story is about betrayal in every horrific sense of the word. I just got court documents that lay out what Robin Turner and James Adams are accused of doing to Robin Turner's husband and James Adams' half-brother. Now, earlier this week, we talked about this story and about how they're facing charges in connection to the dismemberment of Dalewayne Turner, who is 38 years old. Now, Robin Turner, the wife, and James Adams, the half-brother, they both made court appearances in Illinois this week, and we'll talk about where this case is going from here in just a moment. Prosecutors argued that both of them, the two suspects, they should not be allowed to be released from custody as their cases go forward. And you can see why prosecutors feel that way based off the court documents that we just received, because what these two allegedly did, there are not words to describe it. I mean, it would be shocking for any human being to cut up another human being, which sadly we have seen before. But the fact it was the victim's wife and his brother, allegedly, words cannot describe the half of it. And then we'll get to the, frankly, mind-boggling internet searches that Robin Turner allegedly made after her husband was allegedly stabbed to death by his own half-brother. Prosecutors say it allegedly shows that she knew exactly what was going on. One of those searches, and I'll just give you one of these and then we'll get into the rest of them here in just a moment. One of the searches was her asking whether someone could die from an Adderall overdose, according to police. And trust me, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, you might remember when we first talked about this case, it started with a shocking discovery at a lake in Illinois. It was Lake Mattoon, which is about 3 hours south of Chicago. You had a family out on a boat trying to have a nice day, and they thought they saw a dead fish approaching their boat. So they got an oar to try and push it away. But as they got closer, they realized it was not a dead fish. It was a human arm. And they knew it was a human arm as they got closer because there was a tattoo on it. And that tattoo was a Green Bay Packers football helmet with a skull. Pretty unique work of art. So the Illinois State Police puts it out to the public saying they're trying to identify whose arm this is. And then someone calls and says it belonged to Dalewayne Turner, a 38-year-old man who lived in Joliet, Illinois. And what we know about Dalewayne at this point, he loved the Chicago Bears, as many do in Illinois. And he is being remembered for being kind and for having a great sense of humor, according to a GoFundMe page. His cousin told WLS-TV in Chicago that when this story first broke and the name Dalewayne Turner was being mentioned, she called Dalewayne's wife, Robin Turner, which, of course, that's who most people would call if they were in that kind of situation. But this is what she told the TV station, quote, "I was on the phone with her 10 minutes before she was arrested. And I said, Robin, what's going on? Why am I hearing all this crazy stuff I'm hearing? Where's Dalewayne?" She says, "Well, he's still in treatment." And then she said, "Let me call you right back." I never talked to her again. Now, Robin Turner was arrested along with Dalewayne's 26-year-old half-brother, James Adams. Now, this is what we know about their relationship. In 2022, Dalewayne wrote on Facebook, quote, "Happy 22nd birthday to my little brother, James Adams. We love you and are so proud of how far you have come from growing from a boy and into a man. Mom would be so proud of you, and I know she is smiling down on you from heaven today. Happy birthday, little brother." Now, as far as Robin and Dalewayne, they had been married for at least a dozen years. Now, she is 62 years old. He's 38. There's a bit of an age gap there, but it really appeared in pictures that we've seen that they were in love. In 2022, Turner posted, quote, "Happy 12-year anniversary to the love of my life, Robin Monroe Turner. I love you so much, baby. Here is to many more to come." Now, this is where this story takes this terrible turn. And now we are learning what allegedly happened to Dalewayne Turner and the, quote, extreme measures that his wife and brother are accused of taking to try and cover up the alleged crime. And I will tell you, I'm not going to say they made it easy for police, but I will tell you it appears police have a ton of evidence in this case. Now, we have learned that not only did law enforcement find Turner's arm in the lake with that Packers logo tattoo, they say they found multiple black trash bags in the lake, and those trash bags had body parts in them. Along with the body parts, the bags had weights in them, and the items were recognizable enough, the weights, that they could tell that they were purchased from a local Walmart. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, not only were police able to determine that the body parts found in the lake belonged to Dalewayne Turner because of the tattoo, but also because of a ring. And this is really heartbreaking. According to police, on one hand, Dale Turner had a ring, and it was engraved with Dale Hart Robin. And then you just think about that along with what she's accused of, and it just does not make sense. Police say when they trace the weights that were found with the body parts to a local Walmart, they go and review security footage, and that really opens the door in this investigation because they say the person they believe bought those weights drove a Ram truck to Walmart. And they say that person was the half-brother, James Adams. Now, it is interesting. The truck is registered to not only James Adams, but it's also registered to Robin Turner, according to prosecutors. Inside the Walmart, police say they look at surveillance footage, they follow James, and they say that he bought an entire new outfit of clothes. He changes in the store bathroom, then tosses his old clothes in the trash. Police now have the old clothes because they found them in the dumpster at the Walmart. Now, police say they use license plate readers to follow the truck from the area of Joliet, Illinois, down to Lake Mattoon. So let's go through a little bit of a timeline here. On the 26th of June, which is 2 days before that arm was found in the lake, police say that the truck is seen with bags in the back heading south at 7:18 in the evening. Then you have less than an hour later, the totes that were in the truck, they're no longer visible. Police say they also now have the totes as evidence because someone called 911 saying they found the totes in their yard and turned them over to law enforcement. Police say days earlier, on June 23rd, they have a camera showing a bag of concrete in the back of that same truck registered to Turner and Andrews. But as police started to follow that truck and put a tail on Robin Turner and James Andrews, this case breaks wide open because on June 30th, Dalewayne's other brother, a man named Stephen Turner, calls 911 and he tells police that Robin and James told him that they allegedly killed Dalewayne and dismembered his body. They said that his remains were hidden in a freezer in the basement of their home. I mean, how do you even get to the point where someone even allegedly admits to something like that? Now, this is what that brother told police about how all of this went down according to these court documents. He told them that he was now living with James and Robin, and the three of them had just moved into a new house. Now, there are some dynamics here that are unclear at this point about the relationship between Robin and James, and then you have this third brother, and then you have Dalewayne Turner. How does he factor into all of this? It appears that Stephen Turner, who's the witness in this case, he is not facing charges, that he was with James Adams and Robin Turner the night that they allegedly admit to him what happened to Dalewayne. And they say they had gone out. They went down to Indiana to get fireworks, presumably for the 4th of July. They go to KFC for dinner, and then they go back and they're watching a movie at the house when James Adams tells Stephen Turner, allegedly, that he has something to admit to him. And that is where James Adams allegedly said that 2 weeks prior, according to these court documents, Dalewayne Turner had come to their house and he got into a violent confrontation with Robin and James. And James says that in this violent confrontation, James grabs a knife and stabs Dalewayne Turner multiple times, and Dalewayne Turner died. Now, it is important to note that police noted in their report that James Adams had no visible major injuries at the time of his arrest. It says, quote, James and Robin stated to Stephen that they were unsure of what to do and mentioned dismembering the body of Dalewayne and stashing him in a freezer located in the basement of a home on. Stephen stated that James and Robin both stated that it took them approximately 4 hours to clean up the bloodstains. Stephen stated that James and Robin both stated that they dismembered Dalewayne and took several body parts to a, quote, lake where they were disposed of. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what police say they found in the house in just a moment, but let's get to what they say happened when they confronted James, which was around 11 o'clock the night that the other brother called 911. They say that they read James his Miranda rights, and he declines to speak further, but he did allegedly say something. He said, quote, the one thing I will say is that I did it, but I did it out of self-defense. I will tell you guys that, end quote. Now, as far as Robin, she did tell police what appears to be a similar story, that the brothers got into a fight and James stabbed Dalewayne multiple times. She alleges that James told her to help cover up the crime. She allegedly admitted that some of Dalewayne's body was still in the freezer in the basement of the house, a freezer she allegedly bought for the sole purpose of hiding the body of her husband, the body of the man who wore a ring with her name engraved on it, according to police. But she also alleges that she wasn't there when this violent altercation took place. She said that she was visiting her mom at a care facility on June 21st. She stated that James and Dalewayne had gotten into a fight that day, and it was over sports trading cards. She says when she returned from the visit with her mom, she smelled bleach in the house. Police also alleged that several renovation projects were done in the home between June 21st and June 30th, including Robin buying 2 new rugs, but perhaps a major smoking gun in this case is what she allegedly searched on the internet, and that goes back to June 2nd. So we have all these searches listed in this court document. I want to go through them with you. They're really shocking. So we're going to start on June 2nd. She searches, allegedly, does chloroform really knock you out? Then 6 days later, June 8th, she asks, can you, it perhaps means die here, die from an overdose of lithium? Same day, can you die from an overdose of Adderall? Then on the 14th, can you commit suicide with sleeping pills? The 16th, how much, and I think she means Tide Pod, can make someone sick? Then on the 18th, is it easy to crack your head from a fall? The 18th again, can Adderall make you lightheaded? The 18th again, chest freezer. Then you have on the 20th, what does an overdose of Adderall look like? 22nd, what can you do if you pick up something heavy that has tipped over? 22nd, how much concrete do you need for 9 24 by 12 post holes? Then on the 24th, she asks, how long, and I believe she says, does it take a 26-pound turkey to freeze? You can see some of the typing a bit sloppy here. And then on the 24th, why are there so many missing people that never get found? That's a chilling one. How do you divorce someone you can't find? That is incredibly disturbing. Then on the 25th, she searches for a concrete mixer. She searches that actually twice. And then, can spoiled meat stink? With a typo after that. I believe if frozen is what she was going for. And then, do you have to have a body embalmed? And police have put all of those in a petition to restrict her from being released from custody as this case moves forward. And all of those internet search engine questions are what they're using to present that to the court. Now, police then go to this freezer in the basement of the home where she said that there were body parts in it. And you really feel for law enforcement with what they found, because it's not as easy to share. Of course, you think of Dalewayne Turner and what he allegedly went through, but for the officer who opens this freezer, police say the freezer was locked when they found it. It had cinder blocks on it. There was a blanket on it, and it was also sealed shut with duct tape. Police say there were also signs of blood nearby. When the freezer was opened, and I'm going to read from the court document, police, quote, discovered a partial body. There was a torso, neck, and head, but no limbs. The head was attached to the torso, and this person was identified as Dalewayne Turner. There were red blood-like stains found on several surfaces throughout the residence. There was evidence of remodeling, including freshly painted walls, freshly painted stairs, freshly painted front door, new carpet on the floor of the living room, and evidence of the wooden panels being removed. Now, Robin Turner and James Adams, they are charged at this point in time with concealing a homicide and dismembering a body, and murder charges have yet to be filed. Now, Robin and James made court appearances this week as the state urged, for all the reasons we've been talking about, that she should be held in pretrial detention, as well as James Adams. Robin made a court appearance on Thursday where the state argued, for all the reasons we just talked about why they believe she should be held in pretrial detention. According to court records, she has another pretrial detention hearing scheduled for Friday, July 17th. As for Adams, he was reportedly in court on Friday, according to local media, as law enforcement continue to build their case against him, and more charges could be forthcoming. Join us now to talk more about this case, retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. There is a lot here in this petition that prosecutors filed. It seems like there is a lot of evidence. It doesn't appear that the two suspects, if all is what is alleged is true, really made it that difficult on investigators when it comes to just a horrific case. Some of these text messages, hadn't talked about this yet. I mean, let's talk about Robin Turner, because she said she wasn't there when Dalewayne Turner and allegedly his brother end up getting into this fight, and then James Adams stabs Dalewayne Turner to death. But there are text messages. She talks about the bleach that she smells when she came home. And in talking to James Adams, she says, that will leave us about an hour and a half. I don't work. We may have to buy a hoist and do it Wednesday after they leave, and keep pouring bleach if it starts to smell a bit funny. And then she says, quote, be sure to fully delete everything. And this is the evidence that prosecutors have.
Yeah, this is, when you talk about the whole situation, and I believe the James claims self-defense and the spontaneous utterance, but the good thing is she spoke, and everything she speaks about, it can be refuted by the basic evidence you have, which one is text messages. She's saying she wasn't there, but if she knew nothing about it, why is she saying delete everything? Why is she talking about bleach? She says she just smelled it. So the issue you have right now is you have a felony charge of disposing of a body. Can we get to the murder charge on that? We know it's a homicide, death by another, but Robin is one of those people who may have been not just a participant, she may have inspired it based on the allegations right now, based on the situation. You look deeper into this document, you see that she was doing searches, Google searches on Dalewayne to do things, but Adderall and overdoses and pills and injuries. So you're seeing a lot build up on her. So it's not going to be the I didn't do anything, it's all him. It looks like she's a participant in conspiring to do this murder.
Yeah, and it seems like, there's some, I think it's unclear, the relationship, the state of the marriage. You look back to 2022, they seemed very much in love, her and Dalewayne, excuse me. But then, she is registered to have, this Ram truck that police followed that seems to really tie them to what was found at the lake. She, according to prosecutors, is a name on it along with James. So, they were registered together on the vehicle. And then they were living with, and then you have this third brother who's the one who calls police, thankfully, after he was told allegedly what happened. No murder charges at the time we're recording this. Of course, that very much could change soon, but you have this story from James where he says that Dalewayne comes home, they get into this physical altercation, and then at some point he grabs the knife and he stabs his half brother to death, and then they dispose of the body later. Police do note that there Didn't appear that he had a lot of injuries. Maybe he fell down the stairs, something like that. But it doesn't seem like there were, you think of someone maybe getting punched in the face, like no injuries related to that. Like, how do law enforcement, if they believe that he did this, that this was a murder and not a case of self-defense, how do you figure that out?
Well, it goes back to all the information that you have to take away that idea. The issue is the disposal of the body. They're seeing ways in which they attempt to dispose of the body. The going to the Walmart, purchasing items. They have the vehicle on video, and this is one thing about digital forensic evidence. It's great is it gets pieces to the puzzle. The post incident, we have we have the death. We don't know it's a murder. We can't charge murder, but he is apparently killed in self defense. It could be refuted based on several factors: injuries sustained by James, who's claiming that or may claim that in his defense if this charge goes to a murder. Not only that, who will be the weakest link in the chain? Is the wife as responsible because she's saying that he did it? Can they flip her in a sense to get him to say that, to put that on him? But here's the thing about this whole case. She claims that she wasn't there when it happened and just walked happenstance and smelled bleach type of thing. But as you go through all the digital evidence, you're seeing that there was some plotting in her mind along with James to dispose of the body where she knew that he was dead. Not only that, I believe she was family members are reaching out to her to say, where is he?
Yep.
And she claimed that he was away or in rehab. So they were like, so she knew he was no longer there. She knows that. And that's where, if we can't get the physical evidence to put her into that, the circumstantial evidence, well, it's such a sad case because you don't want to see. I mean, this family, whatever damage or whatever's going on. I mean, this seems like a plotted attempt to get rid of to kill Dalewayne and get rid of the body.
I mean, it's betrayal in every sense of the word. I mean, it's the part I keep thinking about is, as they're recovering body parts from a lake, which is gruesome in and of itself, like he is wearing a ring with her name on it. Presumably that's a wedding ring, Dale and Robin. And it is so awful to think that she could have, if what is alleged to be true of what they're alleging, that it was this self-defense and things went sideways and that's what happened. Like, how do you not call police? Like, how do you not how do you go down the line where you are going to, if what she's saying is true, that she just went along with it? Like, how do you even do it to that point?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't, it's mind boggling. And I don't know what
Right.
other word it could be.
Yeah, because that's why a lot of what you're getting, the digital forensic evidence right now with the Google searches that she was making, the text messages between her and James, it lends to the fact that this is not an allegation of an incident just happened. It was a happenstance thing that, oh my gosh, there's a big fight and he stabs him. We don't know. And again, that's why the autopsy is being done. We don't know how many times Dalewayne was stabbed. That's what you're going to look at as far as that. And then the toxicology, because that is very important because she was in Google searches. She was talking about Adderall and sleeping pills and the like.
Yep.
If he's going to claim self-defense and they find toxicology that determines that he had a lot of substances in his system that would not allow him to be awake during this. And that's where the issues come into play. You could probably play both sides off the middle, but you want to get to the evidence available. Toxicology is going to be a good source of information because we have the forensic evidence with the LPR readers and the cameras. You have the text messages, you have that. Eventually you'll get some cell site searches. In other words, you're going to get a way of geofencing them where their phones were at the time. And it's damning evidence right now to make that arrest and to get the detention because there's still dangers and they could flee. But there's still more work to be done because we have probable cause based on the evidence there to make the arrest, and that's what the police have there. Now we want to go to that further charge. Can we charge them with murder based on the evidence that's going to come out later on? And I guarantee you they're working with Illinois state attorneys and working within that area. So,
I mean, I hate asking questions like this because we're talking about a human being and someone who just, to pass away like this is just so awful. But the fact that you have a torso, a head, according to police, and it was kept in a freezer. Is that something that helps investigators as far as, this is a body for whatever day it was that he passed away, it was kept in a freezer. So if you are a medical examiner, does that help you when it comes to trying to determine what happened?
Well, one thing you have, they found the torso, which was in the freezer. So that's one good thing for them because if they're saying there's stab wounds, were the stab wounds on the torso or another other part of the body? So these are things you're looking at. Uh, Secondly, we'll have an idea of the time of death based on the evidence you have. You may not, we don't know when he died, exactly the date, but it seems to be we have an idea based on the time frame. Um, the securing of the remains of the body in that freezer is pretty good evidence that they knew they had that body in the house. It's
Yeah.
horrific. It's obscene, but it's part of the puzzle that is working. And that's why they got rid of the body parts first. They didn't know what to do with the other ones. And this is when we talk about the gang that couldn't shoot straight, the gang that couldn't figure out how to get rid of the body. There's the idea, and that's the thing you look at is did they, and it's all allegations based on what I'm looking at. Was this death planned by both of them? And they might have planned that death, but they didn't know how to plan to get rid of the body in the best way that you can. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to, but they tried in their way based on a saw down. They had a saw downstairs. I mean, it's pretty gruesome stuff to do to sit there and you're chopping up your husband and your and a man that you lived with. He's like your family doing this. It's
Yes.
really wild.
It really is. And like you go down to, people who are out on a boat in Lake Mattoon, Illinois, and then they come across what they thought was a dead fish, and then they realize it's an arm. Um, Thankfully, it doesn't appear if what's alleged to be true, like we're dealing with the most sophisticated criminals, and it seems like there was a complete lack of awareness as far as, how, for example, Google searches, that is something that law enforcement is going to have access to. Your text messages, they're going to be able to get a search warrant for that and see you text something like, make sure you delete everything. Be sure, they will see a Google search. The one for me that stands out is, how do you divorce someone you can't find? She searched that allegedly on Google on the 24th, which was just 4 days before Dalewayne Turner's arm was found. And then that kind of sparked this investigation. I think of the license plate readers that law enforcement have followed to be able to tie them to the Walmart, tie them down there. Not to give away how you do this stuff, and nobody should obviously do this stuff. But I mean, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see that they made? Where I guess more so where it is obvious that they had no idea what type of access a detective is going to have within the first 24 hours of trying to figure this thing out.
Well, that's why people and detectives, investigators do what they do is because we have the resource and availability. When they found the one body part at the lake, they sent a team to find any other body parts which they found. They were able to coordinate or actually identify the weights from a Walmart that might have been purchased. So they go back to the Walmart. They find out who purchased the Walmart. They get a photo of the individual at the Walmart making the purchase. They follow that person into the vehicle. They have video cameras in their area that's able to identify a plate. So these are pieces, and little bits of pieces pull it together, and that's what you're having right now. You pulled it all together to get at least to this level of an arrest. But the next step will be, can you go for a murder charge? Can this be upgraded to murder? And that's why what we have here, what the detectives did was they were able to identify people involved in the disposal of a body. Now can we identify them as the people who murdered him? As not a self-defense act, but was it a murder? As it stands, is it a murder? And a lot of things are showing the play that this was a planned event from her Google searches. So those
Yeah.
are things you look at, and the text messages, and the other part you look at is the interrogation, where she tries to distance herself, and she doesn't realize all the evidence that we have, all the facts and evidence that's available, the true evidence is back there and refutes almost everything that she states and that interrogation, which one thing juries do not like, they do not like liars.
No, and I think too about just again, like I just keep coming back to this complete lack of awareness. And then, I'm sure detectives don't like it if she, tells this story of what happened. One thing I didn't talk about in this episode we did earlier in the week when we first covered this story is we noticed that Dalewayne Turner's Facebook profile picture, I think it was updated on the 28th. So this was after the arm was found, and it's clearly weeks after police say all of this potentially went down. And it's like when that comes out of like who had access to his Facebook page, because clearly he wasn't the one who's changing his profile picture. It just seems like a lot of kind of low level attempts that maybe it worked in a mob movie. It's not going to work in real life. How likely is it? I mean, for her, I just think of, you know, if they believe that she was someone who's not just, you know, going along with this plan, but actually had an active role in this, like how long might it take to figure, and I know we're talking about like hypotheticals in the future, but like, I mean, like if you're a detective, like where's your next step on this?
Well, like I said, you wait for the toxicology report. You're trying to get geofencing because you want to locate. She's claiming she was not at home when this incident takes place between her husband and James. So can we identify her phone being at that location at the time that we believe this happened? So each piece that you're doing to, and this is one thing, we take pieces of the puzzle and we create that design. So we get the outer pieces, we're getting little things, her statements, which we now can refute based on the evidence we have available to us. You put all this together and you're showing that this was a conscious effort to not only remove a body, but possibly a plot to murder him. And that's what it is. Again, these are all allegations at this point, but as a detective, you know, we want to find out the truth. That's what it is. We're truth finders. We get the evidence. The evidence leads us to totality of circumstances as to what happened to Dalewayne. And it looks like it's not just removal. It doesn't look like just getting rid of a body. It looks like a murder. And who are the people involved? It looks like it's going to be James and his wife.
Well, and I think too, Stephen Turner is Dalewayne Turner's brother, and he has spoken to local media, so that's why I'm saying his name. And he is the person they allegedly admitted all this to. And it's like, I don't know Stephen Turner, but for the two that are now facing charges, it's like, what did you think he was going to do when you said you murdered his brother or stabbed him to death? Like, did you think he was just going to go along with it? And it's like just some of the dynamics of this story. It's just really hard to comprehend. I did notice, and I bring him up because I noticed that he said, believe it was they had stabbed, like he used the term they in referring to in the document here, Robin Turner and James, which would, if, you know, I'm kind of connecting the dots here, that kind of refutes what Robin's story was, which was, hey, I came home and I smell this bleach and I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm going along with the other part of it.
Yeah, she's trying to lay it all on James. That's her way of doing it. But the liar, pants on fire defense here is not going to work for them because that's why they told Stephen, we'll never know as to why.
Yeah.
There's always a motive as to, we try to find motive. Sometimes we can't find a motive as to why they did it. It may come out in further searches, internet searches, communications between James and Robin, any other communication that Robin had with anyone else, any other searches that they have. Because, you know, when people say when I die, you know, clear my browser history, it doesn't mean it's cleared. And that's the one thing. Investigators do deep dives into all of this. This evidence can be very damning, and a lot of it seems to be very damning that this looks not just like a disposal, but a murder.
Right. And we'll see what happens next. Just to be specific, Steve Turner called 911, told Joliet Police Department dispatch that his sister-in-law, Robin Turner, and half-brother James Adams had told him they killed and dismembered his brother, Dalewayne Turner. Just an awful, awful story. Out of Illinois, we'll see what happens next. Retired NYPD Detective David Sarney, thanks for walking us through this one. Just a crazy case.
Yeah, thank you very much and stay safe.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we are also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.